Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 4 of The Flash called Going Rogue. This is an episode that was written by Jeff Johns, the writer, well, co-written by Jeff Johns. He has worked with one of the writers from Hannibal on this episode. But Jeff Johns is the fellow who wrote Flash Rebirth, which is the story that this show draws a lot of its inspiration from. So there are a few people out there better qualified to write the Flash than him, and he and his partner do a really great job here. This is easily the best episode of the series so far. And being written by, co-written by one of the actual writers from DC Comics, of course, this episode was pretty heavy on the Easter eggs and shout-outs and nods to the comic book fans. So before I forget any, I want to kind of just talk about those. Now, the first one we got to see is the Kundak Dynasty Diamond, and this is a little bauble that belongs to the villain Black Adam. And of Kundak's a place that has been referenced both on the Arrow at least once or twice, so that was good. And the armored car that was carrying the diamond was a Black Hawk Security car. Now, if you remember, we saw Black Hawk Security over on Arrow being run by Ted Gaynor, played by Ben Browder. So, again, nice little touch there. Let's see here. Oh darn, there's something I'm forgetting. Oh yes, the museum employee that calls Joe in there. If you notice that he's wearing a name tag that says Dexter Miles on it. In the comics, Dexter Miles is the actual curator of the Flash Museum that the people build to honor the Flash for being such a cool hero. Let's see what else. This is one that I kind of missed, but they caught over at Emergency Awesome. Is that the host of the trivia contest at the cafe was named Oswald Loomis, and that's the name of the prankster, a sort of low-rent Superman villain. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, they also make mention of Barry kind of running until he crumbles into dust and he crumbles into nothing but red dust in a red suit. And this is basically how the Flash died in Crisis on Infinite Earths. And of course, it sounds really cheesy if you explain it to somebody, but if you actually go and read the story, it's really tremendously sad. You see Barry knowing that what he's doing is going to kill him, but knowing that he has to do it in order to save the day. And it's really is a very powerful scene. Captain Cold mentions his sister. That's Lisa Snart, who in the comics becomes the character of Glider. Now, one thing you have to understand about Jeff Johns is that he really, really likes Captain Cold. Captain Cold is a big favorite of his to write, and he's done more than just about any writer in Flash history to really flesh Cold out as a character. So it really would not surprise me if we saw Lisa pop up on the show, especially when you consider the fact that his sister is really the only person that Captain Cold genuinely cares a lot about. You do not want to mess with Lisa, otherwise her brother is going to come and just go absolutely apeshit on you. He even mentioned the name of a diner that he used to hang out at when he was a kid, and that is a real place from the comics as well. And let's see, anything else? Nope. Oh yeah, wait. One I almost forgot. One of the members of Snart's gang, if you notice, the guy has a Scottish accent, and Snart refers to him as Scudder. So this would be Sam Scudder, who was in the comics, is one of the guys who was Mirror Master. There was another guy who took up the mantle of Mirror Master, but he basically got axed from the roads for being a drug addict. And we'll talk a bit. Actually, no. Since we're kind of talking about the rogues, let's just kind of get into it. Jumping to the end of the episode, we see Snart talking with another guy and saying like, "Hey, dude, I know you like fire. Do you want to team up? And if you say yes, you get to use this way cool heat gun." Well, yeah. This is basically our first introduction to the villain Heatwave, who is another member of the Rogues. Now, the thing about the Rogues is that they're sort of the super villain crew of Central City / Keystone City. One person even kind of compared them to sort of like a union, sort of like a small local supervillains union, with Captain Cold as the union boss. And one of the rules, and the rogues operate under some very basic rules, and that is you don't kill women and children, you don't kill in general if it can be avoided, you stay away from drugs, and don't kill the Flash. You can beat the hell out of the Flash, but don't kill him. And of course, the logic behind this is if you start killing women and children, or if you kill a whole bunch of people in general, that's going to bring a lot of heat down on you. And if you kill the Flash, then that's going to bring the entire Justice League down on your head. And they're probably not going to be in a mood to play nice. So Captain Cold is a guy who very much in the comics looks at what he does as his career. It's his job. And he just wants to be a professional about it, to be successful about it. Now, this really does play a lot into Wentworth Miller's performance as Cold here. I was reading an interview with him when he was talking about the role, and he said that he sort of envisioned Snart as a guy who was basically sort of bored with his job. He's got what he does down to a science. And then the Flash showing up forces him to up his game. And in the episode, Captain Cold even says, thanks the Flash, you forced me to up my game. The Flash coming along has basically just made life interesting again, and that really appeals to Snart as a character. And again, we do see that he's a very competent guy. He's also a very ruthless guy. We get to standard execute a member of the gang who has displeased you thing. We see him showing that he knows how to sweet talk people as he recruits Heatwave into the Rogues. And if you look at it all at the end of the day, Captain Cold is the guy who really walks away the winner. I mean, he still got to keep the diamond, and now that he's seen Cisco, Felicity, and Caitlin, he knows that the Flash has, kind of a backup crew. In other words, the Flash has people that he cares about. And this basically means Cold potentially has leverage against him. So, again, at the end of the day, Captain Cold walks away from all of this reinvigorated. He would have killed the Flash if Cisco and the others hadn't popped up at that exact moment. And he even gets to walk away and tell him, don't push your luck when they try and make him give the diamond. And then as soon as he does that, they just basically drop it. So yeah, Captain Cold was really the big winner in this episode. And I gotta say, I really did like, of course, Wentworth Miller's performance. He's a really, really talented guy. I've never watched Prison Break, but I've heard people rave about it, and he certainly does an excellent performance here. And they certainly would not have gotten a guy of his caliber on this show if they weren't able to show him scripts with some real juice to him. I did, and the only thing I can really complain about is that I would have liked there to just be a little bit more, say, white trim on that jacket that he wears, just to make it seem a little bit more reminiscent of the Captain Cold costume from the comics. Here, but to be perfectly fair, the Captain Cold costume in the comics just sort of makes him look like a somewhat offensive stereotype of an Eskimo, so yeah, whatever. Of course, the other big thing this episode is Felicity Smoke making a guest appearance. And of course, Emily Bette Richards comes in, and she just totally nails it. I mean, this is like Felicity cranked up to 11, and it is great. We get to see her, delivering some absolutely hilarious lines. And what's really nice is that she meshes very well with the Flash cast. Felicity, in a lot of ways, is somebody who kind of comes from a mold much more suitable to the Flash. Sort of the more lighter and more whimsical attitude. But the reason that she works so well on Arrow is that she's the big contrast to Oliver and Diggle and Roy and Sarah and all these other serious, broody people around her. She's the one that sort of breaks the tension, keeps things from getting too dark and heavy, and that's why she really shines on Arrow. But again, lots of really fun moments, lots of really nice interplay between her and Grant Gustin. And I know I wasn't the only one that who was just like, when she walked into the cafe wearing that dress, I'm just like, oh, she's pretty. She's really pretty. And of course, the shippers were just going absolutely berserk, as they often do. And this led up to this really awesome scene at the end where Barry says to her, "We are just ridiculously perfect for each other." But they want to be with someone else. And it very much is reminiscent of that old saying, the heart wants what the heart wants. I mean, logically, on paper, and even by their own admission, Barry and Felicity really are a perfect couple. But while there's an attraction to them and there's a bond between them, Barry wants to be with Iris, and Felicity wants to be with Oliver. And you can't logic love. Love is many things, but logical is not one of them. And again, definitely some, as I said, a lot of nice interplay between her and the Flashcast. She's obviously sort of someone who really who, as we've seen, gets along well with Caitlin and Cisco. Someone very much from their kind of the place they come from. And I definitely love that scene with her and Harrison Wells, where Wells rolls in there and immediately sings Felicity's praises, and you have to wonder why no Cisco or Caitlin or even Felicity herself didn't just sort of ask her, well, so why is it that you never offered Felicity a job? But of course, we know that him being a time traveler, he's almost certainly aware of whatever Felicity's destiny is, and that is not working at Star Labs. It's stuff involving the Arrow. So again, a nice touch there. Kind of gives us a good moment for Harrison Wells, and even gives us a few details on Felicity's backstory in anticipation of the secret origin of Felicity Smoke episode that we're going to be getting on Arrow later this season. Let's see. Nothing really particular to say about Caitlin this episode. Just watching her play Operation was pretty hilarious. And she is correct. If you've ever played that game, and I have, it is indeed harder than it looks. Although this episode did kind of get me thinking that Caitlin is one of those people who's probably a perfectionist. One of those people who's a perfectionist, but in kind of a negative way. The sort of person that, if they make even the smallest mistake, kind of has a tendency to beat themselves up over it. And I know that because, honestly, I'm that way, and it's something that I've really had a hard time dealing with over the years. But we'll talk about that more at a more appropriate time. This episode was also a kind of a nice moment to give Cisco a little bit of something to go on, with him being the creator of the gun and him explaining, well, we didn't know what was going to happen when you woke up. We didn't know if you were going to be crazy or if you were a bad person, so we needed something to stop you. And the fact that Barry takes this as a betrayal of his trust, and then that his technology is used to kill someone. I mean, Cisco just very flatly says it's something I'm going to have to live with. But again, it is a pretty reasonable thing to have done. I mean, as Cisco said, they had no idea what was going to happen when Barry woke up, that he wouldn't be crazy and go out and use his powers to start stabbing people. So again, Barry probably took this whole thing a little bit harder than he should have, but you can sort of understand why Cisco didn't want to bring that up. Obviously saying here's something we made to stop you in case you were evil. That's not going to go over well. But it just does go to show you that this little group keeping secrets from each other is probably a rather bad idea. Which, of course, when they finally find out that Harrison Wells is not what he seems, is going to make things just even more crazy. Let's see. Anything else? No, that kind of covers what I had to say about them. Talking about Harrison Wells, though, the way he flipped out on Cisco seemed just a little too over the top. Now, to be completely fair, we don't know exactly what's going on in Harrison's head. We don't understand his motivations. So, we don't understand what he felt was exactly at risk there. We just know that he really, really very values Barry being alive. And maybe that's it, but I can't help but wonder if maybe there wasn't a little bit more to it than that. Let's see. Not a huge amount to say about Eddie this episode, though we finally do get to spend a little bit more time with him. And that scene with him at the trivia contest, screwing up, not knowing the name of the Millennium Falcon, and then immediately cutting to the Pride and Padawans team. That was pretty hilarious. As was that scene with him and Joe in and the radio. But again, we haven't really seen Eddie defined outside of his relationship to either Joe or Iris. What I think we need to do with Eddie is what they did with Bullock this week on Gotham, and just kind of give him an episode to go out there and do some cop stuff on his own, so that we can get a better sense of who he is outside of his relationship between Iris and Joe. And although, to be completely fair, where he stood up to Joe at the end and kind of goes like, "I'm not your assistant, I'm your partner," that was pretty cool. So we're sort of getting there with Eddie. It's just he's been on the back burner so far. Joe, this episode was again just sort of basically giving Eddie grief and kind of coming to maybe a little bit more of a better balance with Eddie by the end of it. I also like that Iris did stand up to him and sort of say, like, "Dad, I'm not going to play these emotional games with you. You're just going to have to accept it and continue to treat me like you normally do." And good for her on that. I also liked the idea of her as a blogger, which is kind of cool. It's a step in the direction of journalism. And remember, if you pay attention, that Iris's blog, Felicity was looking at that in the last episode of Arrow. So again, that's another nice little touch. And let me see here. Nope, I don't think. Oh yeah, well, Barry. Well, this episode we get to see Barry kind of dealing for the first time that what Joe said, you're not always going to be fast enough to save everybody, and he takes that predictably pretty hard, and he lashes out at Cisco. But by the end of the day, his little backup crew comes and save him with the Star Labs vacuum of all things. I thought that was pretty awesome. And of course, we also got that really cool scene with him saving the people at the train crash. Now, some people are sort of like, the special effects are a little... Personally, I thought the special effects were pretty darn good. Keep in mind, though, that this is the special effects crew probably doing stuff that's pretty new in terms of superpowers and doing it on TV, on a TV budget. So you have to imagine there's probably going to be the occasional smudge around the edge. But still, overall, really, really nicely done. And in general, that's a way to look at this episode. It was just, as I said, the best episode of the show so far. Really great stuff. Lots of nice shout-outs to the fans. Lots of really funny moments. I just had an absolute blast watching this episode. So with that said, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at HoosierJedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.